So here's the thing, right? I've been into cars all of my life. Even before I was 17, we went to RAC rallies and things like that. So I've been into cars all of my life. And for the first 30 years I've been into cars, it was petrol.
Yep.
And for the last 8 odd years, it's been EV. And I only went EV because, as I said, I wanted to go faster. Faster, more reliably, let's say. But, I haven't seen the reaction of what I'm doing now with EVs when I was modifying petrol cars. And I got to admit, I'm not an EV evangelist. I'm not trying to persuade everybody to go EV because why would I even care what somebody else? Really, it's stupid. I don't give a monkey's what other people drive. It could be steam powered, petrol powered, diesel powered, or electric. I don't care. But the biggest thing I hate about EVs, and I've got to be honest, that I do have a massive gripe about EVs, is the fact that they are so divisive.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I hate about EVs. They are hugely divisive, and they have literally split the car world. That it's like a them versus us type thing. And that was never a thing all of my life with cars.
It never happened with modifying petrol cars, did it?
No, exactly. So that's my biggest hate about the whole EV sort of things. It's just split the car world. And we should say, by the way, everybody, welcome to the new part of the show, because we've just gone straight into it here. But we have thought it's about time we had just a little bit of a podcast type, sitting down having a chat type thing.
Two blokes moaning in a shed.
That's a good point. Comments below. What should we call this new section? Because we got the tech talks where we talk about the technology of EVs, but this is just going to be, as you say, two men in a shed. So comments below. What should we call this part of the show? Because it's going to be a continuing thing. But yeah, with EVs, I mean, you've had classic cars all your life, really. What was your first car?
Well, it's funny because the cars I had, my first cars weren't classic cars, but they are now. It's a bit of a strange concept, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
So I had a Mark II Escort.
Because you are that old.
That's right. I had a Mark II Escort 1.3L, which is now a classic car, but at the time was just a nail. Then I went to a proper classic car, which was an MG Midget.
So your first car was a classic, Escort Mark II. Then you went to an MG Midget, also classic.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed with you and me, we're very similar. In fact, we've been, my first car was a classic car, VW Beetle, 1968. And we both started with classic cars, and we've always had classic cars. The big difference is you keep yours stock and standard.
Yep.
I do things like that to them, and always have done, to try to improve them, make them go faster. I mean, you can't make a Beetle go slower, let's face it. But, I mean, I've always been into the modified aspect of classic cars and that kind of Resto-mod, whereas you always...
I like to keep mine standard. I like to keep them as close to standard as I can.
Like your Willys Jeep, for instance.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant. I loved your Willys
Jeep. That was standard, yeah. My Elise now, I've got a big thing about that, keeping it as original, because there's a lot of them out there that have been modded and mucked around with, and I think, to me, I want to keep it like it came out the factory.
But for me, modifying those cars, ever since I was 17 years old, I've put different engines in. I've tried to improve the performance of them, both like power and handling. I've put, in this thing, do you remember that supercharged engine I had? So I built a 2.4 litre Porsche 914 engine, put a Mercedes SLK supercharger on. I mean, I went to town on the engine, and there were certain people that didn't like. They weren't massive fans. If I went to a Stamford Hall VW meet back in the day, that was pretty much for just like you guys, stock standard, and people would have frowned on what I was doing, but they wouldn't have, chased me away with spears. You know what I mean? And that's what's happening with the whole EV side of things. It's so divisive that all I've done with putting an EV or a motor into a classic car is make it go faster, more reliable. But all of a sudden now I need to be burnt at the stake. What? Why?
Well, we see it quite a lot, don't we? Where you go to places like Goodwood. So we'll be at Goodwood Revival, and we'll have a stand there with lots of really, really iconic classic cars on, and you can see people's faces as they come around the corner and see that you've converted them to electric. Yeah. Some people love it, and some people, sacrilege.
We've learned sacrilege in so many different languages, haven't we?
Yeah. But your question is, why is that such a big thing? Whereas if your stand had just Land Rovers that had got LS engines in it, they'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
Or if there was an AC Cobra.
I see what you did there. You avoided the F word.
Yeah. AC Cobra, which was an AC Ace.
Yes.
And then somebody put a V8 in it.
Yeah.
They'd love that to bits. What's the difference?
I think there's such a big issue with people's minds that electric and cars shouldn't go together. For petrol heads. And bear in mind, for most of my life, I've been a petrol head.
It's probably worth just recapping on our sort of history, really, because we've been into cars, as you said earlier, since we were before 17. We used to go to the RAC rally up in Havering Forest, just up the road, and watch the Group B cars. So we were watching rallying, etc., etc. And then you did a fair bit of motorsport, drag racing.
Yeah,
we did rallying for 7 years in the British Historic Championship. Yeah. You did that off-road racing thing.
Oh yeah, the buggy racing for 2 years with Kingsley.
So your evolution from petrol to electric, correct me if I'm wrong, was because you wanted to go faster, or you wanted more power and more reliably.
Yeah.
So if somebody had brought out an engine, a powertrain that wasn't electric, that was something else, you'd have bought into that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, if hydrogen was possible, let's say, and it's not, anybody that still believes it is, please do your
that's another episode.
Basic part of research, and you'll find that hydrogen is not going to happen for personal transportation. But if, for one miracle of physics, they made hydrogen possible, and it was 1,000 horsepower, and you started off with too much, because that's what happens with EV. You start off with too much power and you go, wow, that's crazy, and you move down. If that was possible with hydrogen, I would have gone hydrogen. I mean, that's the thing with engines that are built for this thing. You get a 20 horsepower more. You put a different exhaust on. You get a little bit more.
That happened with the rally car, didn't it?
Yeah.
So we had it's up here somewhere. It's that one. Yeah. We had a 914, a Porsche 914 rally car from 1970.
73, I think.
73. So it was 72. 73.
Yeah.
Okay, and that had
L.
That had a 2-litre 4-cylinder Beetle engine in, basically.
Camper engine, but yeah.
Yeah?
Type 4
engine, okay. So that stock had how much horsepower?
100 horsepower at best.
So every weekend, at least once, we took the engine out, didn't we, to fix it or do something to it. Yeah. So what did you do over the stages, just briefly, to modify to get extra power? So you had it.
So we had a 4-2-1 exhaust. We had twin Doritos,
Dorito cars,
carbs. I think we ended up with 45s in the end. Up the compression a little bit. All the usual things you do to a normally aspirated car.
But you're spending a lot of money every time, aren't you, to get that much power? Yeah. And every time you get a bit more power, the reliability was going down.
Oh, yeah.
So we were getting a bit more power, and we were having to rebuild it every weekend.
Well, not every weekend.
But it was out, wasn't it? It was out that car every weekend.
You would have to babysit it a lot. Yeah. And we ended up with 180, 190 horsepower at the end. Great powertrain.
So well, you can't say this because your wife might be watching, but how much money are you looking at for an engine?
You back me into a
You're
corner
talking thousands, aren't you?
Yeah,
thousands.
It was a bit of money. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to say a number, am I?
Now, if you were to just transplant that to EV, all the reliability problems go away.
Yeah.
And the performance goes from maximum 200 horsepower to 600 horsepower.
Well, my Beetle, the silver Beetle I've got in the garage there, 600 horsepower. So you start off with far too much horsepower if you wanted to, and you just dial it back. And it's as easy as going into an app on a slider in an app and going, well, I'm going to put it to there.
So as far as sort of performance goes, it's a no-brainer, isn't it, jumping to EV? If you want to go fast, and if you're into racing and stuff, that's what you want to do. You want to go fast, you want to be reliable. It's a no-brainer.
But and for me, I've never been shy of roof chopping a Beetle and depolyring it and doing mods on a car that would probably annoy some people. I don't give a monkeys about those people. I know it probably sounds bad, and it's probably not the best way to put it, but I never thought of other people's opinion.
You do what you want to do
when I do that to my car. So if I find a drivetrain like EV that's going to give me a load of power and tick a load of boxes for me, I'll do that. I don't give a monkeys what other people. That's their problem, if you know what I mean. If they have an issue with it, that's their problem, not mine. But that kind of, to me, is the divisive nature of the powertrain, and it's almost like religion, right? So it's like me trying to persuade, and I'm not an evangelist, I'm an advocate of EVs because I have experience with them. I think they're good, they're better, they're just natural progression of automotive technology. But me trying to persuade somebody that is not experienced with EVs and is still really stuck with petrol is like trying to persuade somebody of one religion to be another religion. It's literally like religions, I think.
Yeah, it is.
And it's very cultist as well, I've noticed. I mean, the word cult does get thrown around quite a bit.
Cult.
Yeah. Halt.
Cult with an L, yeah.
People say that Tesla owners are in a cult. Or, there's the anti-EV cult, etc. To me, a cult is something that is based on a belief system that, like a religion, drink this and you'll die and go off and live with Zarg on the planet, whatever. That's a cult. Okay, it can't be proven. Its belief system, it's religious, etc., etc. To me, anti-EVers are more like a cult because they haven't got direct experience of driving an EV, whereas Tesla owners are more like me, being a fanboy of Beatles, going to Beatles shows all my life.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't say I'm in a Beatle cult, would you? So for me, the cult, word, if you like, fits better with the anti-EVers because it is more like a religious thing. It's not based on direct experience like science and, let's say, that it's just factual. Whereas the Tesla boys, I think they can be too evangelistic sometimes, and it has an opposite effect of what they're trying to do. I'll give you an example, right? What phone have you got now? Have you got an iPhone?
iPhone.
Did you ever have Android phones? Must have.
No.
You've always had iPhones, right?
Yeah.
So I had Android phones for ages, let's say. And the people that have iPhones can be a little bit evangelical about how good iPhones are.
Yeah.
And that could be true.
Yeah.
But for me, it had the opposite effect. I thought, okay, I am going to resist going to an iPhone because those people really annoy me. And that's, I think, why I can relate to anti-EVers, because they're being told, by so many people, why EVs are better, you should move to EVs, etc., etc. And I completely rebelled against those Apple evangelists, if you like, to go to an Apple phone for ages. I'm not going to do that because you told me. I don't care. I don't care what you're saying. I'm going to rebel against you.
And I know why you jumped to Apple now.
And guess what phone I got now?
Yeah, and I know why you did it.
Yeah.
Because
Dan was there. Remember?
Somebody showed you how good they were, didn't they?
Somebody showed me how good they were, and the fact that I couldn't do that with my Android phone, I thought, wow, that is pretty impressive. So I got an iPhone. And now, I wouldn't go back to an Android phone.
But that's like,
and that's what happens with EVs.
That's like people who are anti-EV, but they've never driven one.
Yeah.
They've never been in one.
Oh yeah.
They've got a assumption of what it's like, but without actually experiencing it. And most people, when they get to drive one, and it's no good just getting in one and driving it for 3 minutes. You need to have it for to get a good understanding of it. Most people who do that, they get it, don't they?
They do, yeah. And I think a lot of that opinion of the anti-EVers comes from the fact they're being forced with information, and some of them are conspiracy theorists, and they very quickly, once you start arguing with them, they bring up COVID or climate hoax, and for those there's no hope. They're always going to be suspicious of anything, quite frankly. But for a lot of people that are suspicious about EVs, they're just normal people, but they've been fed lies. Honestly, I can't put it any softer, then they have been fed lies by the media, and misinformation, disinformation, etc.
But why is that though? Why does the media feed out these headlines and lies?
It's because
it sells papers.
Exactly. It's
people click
headlines and clicks is what sells papers and stories, not necessarily facts. And that's the biggest problem, I think, with EVs at the moment, is the perception is based upon misinformation a lot of the time. Like sales figures now, good example, right? If you ask the average man on the street, are EV sales going up or down? What do you think they would say?
They'd say they're going down.
Yeah. Why? Because that's what they've seen.
That's what the media tells them.
But that's not true. The facts are not like backing that up. So everybody's thinking that EV sales are tanking, and we're members of the SMMT, which releases the numbers of new car registrations every single month, and it's actually the opposite is true. So if you look, for instance, at new car registrations last month, what month are we at now? November. So if you look at, say, October, there's October. So I've got October's figures here. Here we go. So year on year, so this is comparing how many new cars were registered in October 2024 to October 2023, right? EVs sales have gone up 24%. So the amount of EVs sold in October went up by 24%.
That's pure EV.
Pure EV, not hybrid or anything like that.
Yeah.
Petrol went down 14%. Diesel
diesel's really
diesel went down 20%.
Yeah.
Now, people out there might be thinking, oh, that's just 1 month. Let's go back to September. So EVs went up 24% in September as well, compared to the previous year. Petrol went down by 9%. Diesel went down by 7%. And I can keep on going. I mean, August, for instance. August, EVs up 10%. Petrol down 10%. Diesel down 7%.
So those are the facts.
Hang on. Let me see if I can find a month. So going back to, what is this? July now. EVs have gone up 18%. Petrol gone down 6%. Diesel gone down 22%. June. Where's June? June. EVs gone up 7%. Petrol down 7.8%, diesel down 17.2%. May, EV's gone up 6%. Again, petrol down 2%, diesel down 16%. I mean, how far do you want me to go back?
Don't go any further. I'm falling asleep.
EVs have gone up 10% in April. Petrol up down 3%.
You made your point.
Diesel down 25%. So
all right, they're the facts then. So that's what is happening in reality, because that's coming from the factual organisations, right? What's the media saying?
So, well, as you know, anything...
Didn't the media say something about Volvo, for instance? Wasn't there something about Volvo and the fact that they were reducing their...
so you're seeing lots of headlines like Volvo, who are adjusting their number of EVs and stuff by 2030. So they put out an announcement. They said, we're probably not going to be 100% EV by 2030. We are going to be, they're forecasting now something like 95% will be of their cars that they sell will be EV and plug-in hybrid, and 5% will be mild hybrid. Okay, no ICE. Pure ICE. So they've gone from 100% EV and plug-in hybrid to 95% plug-in hybrid and EV and 5% mild hybrid. That was what they released. Okay, that's the statement. Headlines were a Volvo U-turn on their EV Dream. EV Dream crashes and burns with Volvo, EV, etc., etc. Basically, fill in blank here. The EV dream is over. The bubble has burst. Volvo come to a reality check. They're not going to be,
they're going to start making.
They're going to go back to petrol and diesel cars. That sort of like type of headline, and that gets people to click. Oh, there you go, another one.
Told you.
Yeah. But the facts are, that's the statement that came out. They've gone from 100% to 95%, and 5% is going to be mild hybrid. That's the problem, I think, that's making people so, not anti-EV, but they are losing a lot of faith, if you like, in whether or not EV is the direction to go with, because that's what the media is spinning them.
A lot of mixed messages.
All those months are just reeled off there. Every single month, petrol and diesel new registrations are down. Okay, have you seen any headline at all this year that says the petrol and diesel sales are crashing?
No,
I haven't.
No.
Even though the EV sales are going up every single month, and petrol and diesel, I've not seen one headline that tells me that petrol or diesel are going down. But the facts and the numbers tell you a different story. And I think that's partly, it's probably wholly to do with just the way that media works now. It's all click-based.
Of course it is. It's all designed to sell papers, isn't it?
And fires is another thing. This started a while back, okay? It's the whole exceptionism thing. And exceptionism is where you are taking an exception to a rule and you're making that the headline so that people actually think that that's normal. Exceptionism is just rife with EVs. I mean, it's pretty known now with just figures, and bear in mind insurance companies and fire departments and risk assessors have to crunch the numbers as to whether or not our EVs more risk of catching fire than petrol or diesel. I mean, people have to crunch those numbers as a job, and studies have been done, and it's universally known now that EVs are far less likely to catch fire than a petrol or diesel car. But if you speak to most people and say, give me the top 3 things that concern you about EVs, guarantee you one of the top 3 would be
they always catch fire.
It'll always catch fire.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's another example of how the media has just taken advantage, I think, of people's lack of knowledge because they don't have an EV and their concern about new technology. They're taking advantage of it.
But that's really dangerous, because I had a similar thing with battery storage. So that's batteries for putting in your house so that your PV charges it up. So nothing to do with cars. This is battery storage, but it's the same technology, isn't it?
Yeah,
same battery. And I was looking into it from the sort of official figures, and there is not one recorded case of a battery storage system fire in the UK. Not one recorded case.
Yep.
But if you go out there, the whole of the country assumes they're all bursting into flames all the while. Yeah. There's not one recorded case. And I'm having to challenge that on a daily basis, where people are saying, we can't install battery storage because they're gonna explode, and it's never happened.
I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? I mean,
you've got a tinfoil hat, though.
Yeah, but that's but there is some. I can see why people lose faith in media and the news items. The whole COVID fiasco and stuff, where people just have a conspiracy theory about the COVID vaccines. Don't trust what the media says, but they will trust the media when it's about electric cars. So which is it going to be? Yeah. Are you going to not believe the media for that, but you are going to believe the media in that? Do some research. And you see it on our socials feeds all the time. The word sheeple. I never realised there was a word called sheeple. Or do your own research.
My favourite one is you're doing Biden's bidding.
Oh, that won't be around now, will it?
No.
So it'll have to be something rhymed with Trump now. But yeah, I mean, they seem to believe the media when it fits with their way of thinking, if you know what I mean. And okay, it's pretty given now, and even the most ardent of anti-EV will understand that EV fires are far less likely than ICE fires, but they will always come back with a sidetrack. Oh, well, okay, that might be true, but you wouldn't get a petrol or diesel car catching fire when it's parked on your driveway. An EV will. No, that's not true either. I mean, just Google, BMW parked car fires. They're recalling millions of cars because they catch fire when they're parked. I mean, and then you respond with that, and then they'll come back with something else. Oh, what about this? So there's the whataboutisms rife within the anti-EV clan, and I'm trying to sit on the fence because I'm not anti-petrol, as you know. I mean,
no.
Yeah, where I'm an advocate of EVs because I own EVs and I use them, and I know, from my experience, that we will never be going back to petrol. But I try not to be a petrol basher, if you like. I just have issues.
It's trying to smooth the waters, isn't it, between the two sides? There shouldn't really be two sides, should there? It should just be one. You don't get diesel versus petrol.
You did a little bit, but not to the extent where you get EV versus something else. So going back to Resto-mods, for instance, I mean, there's companies like Singer out there that do those amazing recreations of 911s, and we did that 911 episode the other week, and people were losing their shizzle because we've taken out one thing, the engine, and replaced it with electric motor. And they were saying, "Oh, it's not a 911 anymore. That's not a Porsche 911 anymore because you've removed the engine,
and it's reversible,
and it's completely reversible, etc. Not changed anything else. No suspension, body, etc. Just the engine." And then you got Singer, and there's other Resto-modders out there. Fantastic machines that they build, and they've replaced the engine. I mean, I think they have Williams engines in them now. They completely changed the suspension. They got double wishbone suspension on them. They completely changed the bodywork. They got carbon fibre bodywork.
They do a full carbon fibre bodywork one, don't they? Yeah.
Everything is literally changed. Interior, the lot is completely changed. Yeah. The only thing is it looks like a 911. Okay, it looks like a 911. It's a little bit modded, and people say, "Oh, that's still a 911." How? I mean, they've literally replaced every single thing on it, and there's probably hardly any Porsche parts on it whatsoever. But we take the engine out, put electric motor in, and that's not a 911.
But you spend a lot of effort as well, don't you, for most of your conversions, making sure that the rest of it is stock. Yeah. So it looks exactly the same as it did before.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's got. I don't want to detrimentally take away the classic car aspects of the driving experience. For me, it's adding to it.
More usable,
more usable, more reliable, bit more power, and if we can address any idiosyncrasies of the car had which were negative in the first place, like weight balance, we'll address that at the same time. I'm not going to be, putting in touchscreen iPad things on the dashboard and removing the dials, and I'm not gonna mod them that deeply, if you like. But there are companies out there that make amazing machines like Singer that do, and Tuttles and others that do amazing recreations of these 911s, for instance, that literally they replace nearly everything. Yeah. And it's the engine.
People don't seem to have a problem with that.
They don't have a problem with it. The engine's still in it.
Isn't it? They think it's fantastic.
Yeah. And I've never been. I've been drivetrain agnostic. Is probably a good way to put it. I don't care if it's steam powered, petrol powered, diesel, electric. Don't give a monkeys. I just want to be able to enjoy my classic cars as daily drivers, and have that reliability of a modern drivetrain. And for me, modern drivetrain means EV. But there's another flip side of those companies, and there's another one called Retro Power that I watch on YouTube. You've ever seen Retro Power?
No, I've not seen that.
Great company, does some amazing work modifying. Basically, they do what we do. Resto-modding, if you like, classic cars, putting in modern drivetrain, etc., etc. But all of these companies make amazing, machines to a very high quality. But the modifications I see them do, I wonder how they get away with it with the DVLA, because we have to be whiter than white with our conversions. They're completely bolt in. Any battery, drivetrain, motor, etc. we put in bolts into the existing infrastructure of the car. For me, it's because it's got to be reversible, because we're respecting the classic car. I don't want to be drilling, cutting that much anyway. But also, we have to do it because the DVLA have that 8-point radically altered point system.
Yeah. So that limits, doesn't it? That limits the amount of things you can do to a car before it has to have a full IVA inspection, and thus a Q-plate.
Yeah, so for instance, you can't modify the chassis or the monocoque. I mean, literally drilling a hole in a bulkhead will, a DVLA inspector will go, right, that's been modified, off to the IVA Q-plate you go. So we're whiter than white, and our industry tries to be whiter than white in that respect. But we've also been in the rallying industry, haven't we? And modified cars. And you modify stuff to the nth degree, and so do a lot of those companies, replacing the whole body with carbon fibre, for instance, and, welding on different engine mounts if you're going to be putting a V6 in an engine that had originally a 4-pop. That has always been a huge thing in those industries, the hot rod industry, rally industry, etc., etc. But as soon as you do it in EV land, it's different.
It's
Why? Why is there such bias, if you like, with EV powertrain compared to modifications for petrol? I mean, rally industry, for instance, you put in a roll cage. That's the first thing you probably have to do in a rally car. The very basic thing you need is a roll cage, be it bolt in or weld in. You speak to the DVLA, and I've had correspondence with them. They will confirm that you have to have a Q plate and go off for an IVA if you put a bolt in or weld in roll cage into a car. So how's the rally industry got away with that for so long? How have these Resto-modders got away with it for so long? It's just it annoys me, quite frankly.
I can tell.
But I mean, to be fair, the DVLA can only deal with the cases that are put in front of them. And if people don't tell them, they won't know.
Yeah.
Okay, how can they not know about the whole rally industry, for instance? I have issue with that, but there is something to be said that, well, they can only deal with the cases that are put in front of them. And we do put those cases in front of the DVLA because we're changing the fuel type from petrol, diesel to electric, so they have to, go through the process. But anyway, I'm not going to rant on about that for a while. But the DVLA are now acting, and they realise there's some things to sort out because they had that call for evidence thing a few months ago.
Yeah.
Don't know if you remember.
I do.
Where they tried to engage, and rightly so, with the classic car industry because if you restore some of your cars, for instance, I mean your Austin Healey's probably it's gone now, but some of those classic cars have probably had most of their panels replaced over the years because of rust. And on a Land Rover, for instance, one of the big thing on a Land Rover that goes is the the chassis bit at the back. So welding on new panels with classic cars and modifying them is just a thing. So they have engaged with the industry now to kind of address it, which is a good thing. We'll see where that goes. But some of the modifications that we do really get underneath people's skin because we're changing the drivetrain, and I just don't get it. I mean, why?
Well, I'm hoping that it cools down a bit.
I think it will. The more people that get EVs, the more people will, and we see it on our social media. If you look at our social media 8 years ago, 99% of the people on there wanted to kill me. It was as simple as that. I was doing the devil's work. Now it's 50-50, maybe actually.
I'd say it's less than 50-50. I think there's only a small minority, well, not minority, but there's a lot less than there used to be.
Yeah.
A lot less. I think it's going in the right direction.
And
I think the more people experience general EVs and the things you do, and you've seen it, haven't you? How many times have you taken people that were absolutely anti-EV, absolutely thought, like you say, you're the devil, and you take them for a ride, and they go, oh, actually...
Yeah, we have quite a few car clubs that come to us, and I make a thing about taking them out for a spin.
Yeah.
And you're not going to convince everybody for a 5-minute spin around the block, but you can see straight away they come back and go, that was interesting.
Even if you've changed their mind slightly, you've planted the seed, haven't you? And it'll. But ultimately, people have got their own opinion, and there'll be people who don't want to do. I mean, and you've got to respect that as well, haven't you? I mean, if I had a particular classic car, some of them I would consider converting to EV, but there's some that I would have that I wouldn't convert to EV, and that's fine, isn't it? You've just got to accept.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, modifying classic cars has always been a thing, and I don't see a difference between modifying that classic car with a different engine, a modified engine, or electric drivetrain. To me, it's the same thing. It's just a natural progression of technology that you're updating something old, like putting modern central heating in an old house. I mean, if you've got an old house, that was built, in the 1800s, you've probably got rid of your old fireplaces. You've got modern central heating. You probably, put in a toilet. A lot of them didn't even have toilets. You probably put in modern plumbing. You've got electricity in there now. All these things are just modern updates to make it more livable and more enjoyable.
It's progress, and you can't halt progress.
No.
It's like the transition from propeller planes to jet planes, isn't it? You know.
But nobody that's gone on holiday to, Mallorca has got off the plane and gone, you know what? That plane ride would have been a lot better if it was propeller.
And slower. Yeah, if it was slower.
Because I like the noise. There are some weirdisms like that. But anyway, I think we've rambled on far too long now. Yeah. So I think we need to congratulate anybody that's got to the end of this episode and kept with us. Because this is the first, shed ramblings that we've done, and I think we need some suggestions.
We need a name, don't we? We need a name for this kind of shed rambling.
Yeah,
and also we might be a good idea to have some ideas for future topics to discuss.
Great idea.
Yeah, and also any comments on what we've been discussing. Do you agree with what we've said, or do you disagree? That's fine as well. We're up for
both sides of the argument. I mean, Tim hasn't got an EV yet, for instance. So, I mean, he's, on... I don't even want to say one side of the fence, because then that draws a border. It's been divisive again. But
I'm on the fence.
So let's start a conversation in the comments below. As Tim says, let's have some topics to do on other, other shed ramblings. And please give us a name for this section, because we can't come up with it. We've got the tech talks and things like that in the workshop. We've talked technically about technology in the EV space, but this needs a name, because we're going to do more of them. So, as I say, congratulations to anybody that's made it to the end of this episode, and hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.